Okay. Well, today's meeting is going to be sort of a review of what we have accomplished in the 2 years. And Carolyn and I were talking about it, that it really the last 2 years have really surpassed our notions when 3 years ago we were writing this proposal. We had some visions and we said, well, that looks all great and maybe it'll happen, but not likely. It turns out we actually made some significant progress, and we want to share that with you and make you realize that this community has really made some stuff happen. So let's begin and give a brief overview, because I know some of you may even be new. Some of you, of course, have been with us for those 2 years. But many new people keep joining us, which is what proves that what we're doing is really important. And by spreading of word of mouth and all these other activities, we are growing. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the first thing I want to show is there's all kinds of activity going on already. And we finalized some plans with RRCoP. There's going to be a new workshop. Many of you are aware that we had a RRCoP workshop together with the cybersecurity professionals in, what was it, Bellevue, Washington. And there we had a workshop on creating a template for a SSP. That was very well attended and very well received, and the result was very useful. And because of that success, RRCoP wanted us to do something again. So we're coming up with a new proposal for a workshop that is basically themed around Day with the CMMC assessors. So this is something that's on everybody's mind. That's what's coming.
Yeah, and I'll cover that in a couple of slides too. So there's more information on that one.
Great. And then there's a couple of other important events. There's a CUI Con in Orlando coming on February the 21st, 23rd. And then there is a CIC in March. And there's the 4th annual NIST Securing HPC Systems in Wichita State University in Kansas. And that's May 21, 22nd. All of interest to this community. So that's what's coming up. Next slide.
Hey, Eric, really quick.
Yeah.
On that last conference about securing HPC systems, have you been to that before? Do you know much about it?
Yeah. So this is a series of workshops that were organized by NIST, and it started in 2018. 2017 was the first one. 2018 was the second one, and the goal of that workshop was to sort of learn what the HPC community could bring to how you secure HPC systems. Then there was a gap. It didn't work. Somebody else, and we got started, but it didn't work. And then in the beginning of 22, we started a work group again, and that resulted in a workshop in March of 23, just this past year. That was very well attended, had over 100 people. It was in Gatesburg, right next to the NIST offices, and it made a lot of progress. And it was so successful that that everybody wanted to do another one. And as you know, I'll talk about that a little bit later. We have a partnership with NIST that has really met some of the goals of our proposal. So,
one question that did come up is there an attendee limit?
Well, at this point, the only thing that has been fixed is the dates. More details will come, and as they are available, we will make them available at these monthly meetings and on our regulatedresearch.org website. So that's one place, and of course at the NIST website. If you Google for 3rd HPC security workshop, then you'll find it.
Is this workshop also going to be related to the NIST document that you were co-author on, Eric?
Yes,
About-
yes, it is around that sort of portfolio of work. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Sorry.
Next slide. So the big hot topic is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program guidance has been made available on December the 22nd, and there is a comment period through February 26th. And so it behooves all of us to get information and, you know, make some comments, get together, write joint comments or write individual comments. And we will have Jacob Horn, who is a person who has spent the majority of his life really delving very deeply in this whole compliance for security and risk management. I mean, he knows the whole story about CUI and whatever. So he is the right person to give us a good summary at our next at our next webinar on February the 14th. So that'll be a great webinar to listen to. So the proposal and the goal of this whole community is we have all our individual institutions where we see that, of course, we have limited resources. We cannot just hire an army of people to go and do all this work. And lots of institutions have variations because that's the way academic institutions are. And they have to solve the same problems that are imposed by regulations. Some of them are older, like HIPAA for protected health information, and some of them are newer incarnations of old information restriction on export control and international trade in arms regulations. And that is now morphed into CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Plan program. And so we saw that there is a need to do two things. One is to make sure that when the institutions want to be competitive in this world and actually stay alive, because there are now regulations and rules coming out that basically say, if you are an institution and you're trying to do these things and you don't meet these goals, you're not going to get any more grants, or you're going to get fines. And if you want to get a particular grant, you have to prove that you can do these things. Well, these things are not easy to do. And so people get hired in positions and they have to do all kinds of activities. So we want to share resources. And we want to do this across the nation. And we also want to be able to, if you are part of this community and it is part of your job to do this kind of thing, that you have a group of colleagues that you can talk to. So that's one big reason to create a community of practice. So let's go to the next slide. So that's what we did. We created a community, and you can see the representation. We now have over 275 institutions gathered over the past 2 years, and the dots show you how well we are represented from all over the place. So this is a really good community that we've created, and we have a website, regulatedresearch.org, where people can find resources and meet each other. We have a Slack channel to talk to each other with, and that way we are a living community. And with several of the things that we've done, so let's go to the next slide. Let's go to some of those resources of what we have.
I'll take over at this one.
Yep.
All right, as Eric mentioned, we do have a robust Slack site, and that we now are up to 900 some people at it. Obviously, we have some people who have probably taken other jobs, so the number's probably lighter, but it's a very engaged community. We're ready to answer your questions, regardless of if it feels redundant, because it's also a free site. So it means it eats the data after about 90 days. So that at least keeps us entertained in terms of, sure, ask it again. The answer might be different this time, and you don't know that it was asked prior. We're okay with that. It's kind of interesting. I created this one in 2018 because I was kind of looking for where the conversations were happening beyond conferences. And since I couldn't find where they're happening, I created the Slack site, and I'm really impressed to see that now it's at 900 people. So anyhow, please join, communicate, join, anything you got. Just please add your institution to your last name, or else I'll go back and comment on that. So then I wanted to point out a little bit of what brought this community of practice together. Purdue had a handling CUI grant from NSF from 2018 to 2020. And the whole purpose of this was to make an end-to-end workflow of how to really handle CUI in their environment. One of the great things that this one did was they put all of their documentation that were at least generalized, and they put it up. It started to they put up all their documentation that was generalizable, and they've shared it out, and RRCoP is its permanent home for it. So the other major thing that came from that was when COVID happened, we all got in that spot where, oh gosh, where do you spend that money on outreach? That was our final year. So things changed around a bit, and we ended up doing 6 mini workshops. And this became a first of its kind gathering of all of us. And it was the first time we were really talking to each other about some of the details on how do you really go about handling this type of environment for yourself. Let's see. Why am I getting? Okay. I recommend highly, if you haven't read this document, to check it out. I've read it more than once because sometimes you're dealing with a different type of the program, parts of it. So maybe this time you're talking about how is it hard, why is it hard to get some money for it? Okay, let's reread that section, and you'll find it really valuable. So check it out. All right, next
Yes,
one.
it still is relevant, that is for sure.
We also, what you're sitting in right now is our monthly webinar series. And what's interesting about that was we proposed that we didn't want to just talk about the same thing all the time. We have 7 different topics that we need to cover throughout the whole award. And we're looking to share each other's lessons learned. We're looking to do planning meetings like this. We're looking to focus in on the researchers and making them get to science faster. So how do we help each other in that space? As you know, they are recorded. They are posted online in order to get to them later. So then instead of listing a solid 24 of them, here's some categories we have had presentations on. If this is new, fantastic. As Eric did mention, one of our big offerings was we're scheduled to do 3 workshops in this award. And last year we did a advanced SSP workshop at the EDUCAUSE Cybersecurity Privacy Professionals Conference. It does not roll off my tongue. But to that, it was a full day workshop, and we had about 65 people from 49 different institutions. And together we came together and wrote the responses to 43 of the controls for NIST SP 800-171. And something like this had never really been done from that standpoint. We're also used to seeing what existed in our own SSPs, that it really wasn't normalized to see someone else's, perhaps. And what was great about that was through the day, we produced this document that is downloadable. You can take it, how can you help in your own environment? So huge, big accomplishment. And one of the things that was interesting on that was in one of the more recent NIST presentations was they cited that this is one of the most requested items to them. And this is not
sure
something that
he is. He said something, he left about an hour and a half ago.
Please
Yeah.
mute yourself if you're not. It looks like we came in unmuted, so. All right. Actually, I can mute all, and then I can unmute myself, I think. Let's see.
Carolyn, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was just trying to not hear others. Oh, all right. Then, all right. All right, so as part of that, they have come back saying that was an amazing workshop. Can we do it again? And you'll laugh because that's not my personality. I'm not an encore kind of person. I would like to solve something new. As Eric mentioned, we are scheduled to do another full day workshop, and start your planning right now because this is, I want you there. We are going to have a day with the assessors, and I have gotten verbal yeses from some really top assessors in the CMMC organization. And what I wanted to help out here was kind of expanding what we had experienced at UCSD on the learning assessment. I want to offer that to a much broader group. I want to offer that to the community. And yeah, so I am beyond excited about this. So we want to do it in a day type of thing where there's presentations / discussions on each of them. And we're trying to get you ready for what does it look like when an assessor's there with you on campus. And we're thinking first how to scope it correctly. What does your system security plan look like? They have in fact reviewed our system security plan from last year, and they're willing to give some feedback on that of, is this something that would pass? What else does it need? So I think that's a really great way of adding on to last year's accomplishments. Then in the afternoon, we're looking at kind of the hierarchy and spider webs that looks like you're supporting documentation. We'll answer questions like, is yours enough? And then another big one is, all right, so you're ready to go, now what? And how do you select your assessor? How do you engage with them? And what does this relationship look like moving forward? So I'm ultra excited about this, as you can probably notice. And I hope that I'll be seeing pretty much everyone under the sun there. And it's submission time. So maybe if we're getting this type of group, we can also have related types of presentations through the regular event. I don't know. All right, back to Eric. You're likely muted. Yes.
So we got a lot of accomplishments from a pure sort of deliverables, and we have a large community. What I want to talk about now is the next step that we really thought was pie in the sky. Let's go to the next slide. And that is, this whole compliance business is not a technical task like, you know, becoming a Linux expert and create a community where you teach people how to do Linux. Now, even if Linux is a very complicated world, in some sense, it's pretty small and dedicated. You're a system administrator, you work with systems, you do software things. This whole compliance business touches so much, and this is shown in this diagram here with these multiple silos. You have government regulations, you have to deal with research administration, you have to do training and outreach, not only with the people that do some of the tasks to make compliance work, but then the people that the compliance applies to. And then we have cyber infrastructure, ecosystems, And then you have data security. And what we have accomplished over the 2 years is all kinds of aspects here identified have opened up their ears and they've taken note of us, and they are now actually talking to us. And that is a massive progress. So let's go to the next slide, where the same diagram is reflecting different organizations that have an important voice in some of these things, like COGR about government regulations and research administration, the Federal Data Project, Trusted CI, NSF-funded project that deals with cyber infrastructure, data securing, training and outreach, REN-ISAC, the High Trust Alliance that is initially focused on HIPAA and PHI compliance, but now does a lot more compliance. We have CASC, the Coalition for Academic Scientific Computing. All these organizations, EDUCAUSE, who asked us, hey, do you want to do this workshop last year? Now they want us to do another workshop because clearly we resonated with the community and they see that it's relevant. And regulation in research activity has grown dramatically. Next slide. So let's now look at some of the efforts. And I think our reputation has grown. And the example that Carolyn already gave, the fact that she approached Jacob Horn, could you maybe possibly give us a talk at this February webinar in our group on this topic? The fact that he said yes means that we are considered as a relevant place for this highly sought after person to spend his time. So I think this is great. So we have another set of activities here that I just want to go over that show how much we have accomplished. And I think all of us should be both proud and grateful, because it means that we now do have input and get information from all these people, but also your input, your participation to this, through this community, to these organizations and these activities is important, including this whole CMMC comment period as a great example. We are now talking to some of the people at the CMMC advisory board, or what is it called? The AB. It's I forgot, the accreditation board, and they're saying, hey, we want your input. And if you talk about compliance, there are sort of three aspects. We're us, the one who implement it. You have the government that just make the rules. They say, this is what you shall do. And then you have the auditors who will investigate you and they will say, yep, you meet these requirements. And those conversations are complicated. And in the beginning, we were just the people taking it all and say, okay, whatever you say, we'll try to do it. But it's not always possible. Now, finally, we are to the point where we can actually talk to the government and say, well, this requirement is not that great and it doesn't work. It's not that we not want to implement security, but in order to implement security the way you're saying it is not going to work. And that is one example is at the bottom left of this slide, the NIST 800-223. It's a collaboration that RRCoP has been in for the last 2 years with NIST and a working group inside them that includes a lot of academic institutions, all of the national labs, and some of the other three-letter agencies in the government that we came up with and said, look, all these high performance computing systems deal with data. They need to meet requirements, but the normal compliance frameworks don't quite work. They are really designed and they grew and have been tested for enterprise computing systems, but for high performance computing system, it doesn't quite work. So how do you do that? So that's an ongoing activity that is now very tightly coupled, and we're going to have another year, and we start this year with a new working group that will create an overlay, which will be published as another 800 dash something document, special publication from NIST. That will be an overlay to NIST 853, where we will explicitly say, well, most controls in NIST 853 moderate, which is what CMMC is based on, are acceptable and perfectly fine. We can implement them in HPC systems, but there is a small group, somewhere between 10 and 20 controls that have some real difficulty because they compromise the mission of high performance computing. It's like, oh, if you do this, now you basically kill the performance. So you bought your $100 million machine and it's running only at 50% of the capacity, which means you waste whatever, how many $1 million. And how can you change that without compromising security? So that's what this overlay will do. And the fact that we are now part of that conversation shows the value of this community and the voice that and the power to the voice that all of you bring. And we had a conversation at the others on the right-hand side at the University of Florida. We've been working with the High Trust Alliance, and again, a similar discussion where they are open to see how can we meet the computing environments and the compliance environments for both research and education that are not necessarily the same as your typical enterprise computing. And so this is where I think we have made a massive progress, and it's beyond our expectations, and I'm very grateful to you. And that's why this meeting today is so important. We want more of your input and keep moving this community forward. Let's go to the next slide. So that's really where we are. It's like, are there some things that we, beyond what we already told you, these are the plans we are having. And I think we were always thinking, if you have a community, you can talk as a voice of the many, and you can say, hey, you know, instead of each and every one of us having individual conversations with our auditors, how could we implement the training that the auditors receive, that it says, hey, and if you're dealing with an educational research institution, then you are allowed to sort of make these decisions in a slightly different way because their environment is different. And so then your conversation with these auditors will be much more productive than each and every one of us having a conversation and trying to convince the auditors they're just trying to do their job. And they say, well, this is what you have to do. And you need to come up to some compromise. And then next year you got to do it again. Or there's another person and your colleagues at other institutions, they have to have the same conversation with these auditors, with the auditors that they're working with. And it's just the same work gets done over and over again. If we can do it as a community, and now it really feels we're getting there. So very exciting times. So here are some of the questions. What topics are you currently wrestling with in your